That's us. I'll be right back.
All right, all right. Uh, well, I'm gonna be by myself here for a minute, so
There you go.
uh, I guess that gives some people time to get in here. Everyone gets to listen to some tones. So Mike picked up some overtime, uh, and he's actually working. So we'll see how long it takes for him to get back. I'll hit his intro maybe twice for editing purposes, but for now, if you're making your way in, maybe that gives some people time to come in live. And then I'll just sit here and talk to myself, which is equally awkward. So, man, Mike, we were just talking before I went live here. He's got 26 years in, 20 in Waukegan right now. He works in Illinois, which is probably going to be a theme for most of these ones at the beginning because, it's the area that I work in, so it's a little bit easier in that regard. But, I mean, he's been through private. He's been through contract, paid on call, volunteer. He's a village trustee, or he was. I don't know if he still is. I mean, he's been all over. He worked at Six Flags, Great America, which is up here in Gurnee, which is a neighboring town. And, yeah. So, we'll just kind of hang out, and maybe Mike will get back. It sounded like an engine call, but I don't know. Mike and I haven't really talked in many years. So this will be kind of cool. Hey, there they go, out the door. That's the way of the world, isn't it? Well, welcome back. This is episode 3, unofficially episode 2. I'll talk about some stuff here while I wait for Mike. As I've kind of been going through this, I've been fortunate enough where it sparked some conversation, and I've been able to talk with more people than I thought that I would really have great conversations with. I was a little nervous to get out and put a podcast out, just because in the era of social media, right, sometimes what you put out there can be held against you, but I try to keep things pretty positive, at least on this page, and factual, right? So if it's something that rubs someone the wrong way, it's not coming as an antagonistic way. It's coming as maybe an awareness kind of thing. So that's kind of where I've been at. As we wait for Mike to get back again. If you're jumping in here, waiting for Mike to come back in here. But one thing I wanted to start and share was something when I was having conversations with some of the guys that are going to retire soon at work. I've been trying to pick people's brains and figure out, why maybe some of them have been, apprehensive with things, or towards the end of your career, how do you get there? That's really the whole focus on, at least where I was coming from with writing, an eventual book, which was kind of my plan. But one of the biggest things that I had come back that I really, really, really wanted to share was one of the more senior guys. His name's Steve. And Steve had a thing that I found pretty profound. So he's at retirement age, and he's actually bumped up his retirement time by a couple months, I believe. And he's trying to go out with some of his friends that are around the same age or same time on, and ready for retirement and that kind of stuff. And Steve said something to me when I was asking him, hey, what advice you got? What do you see as you're kind of, making your way out? And he goes, I don't know how you can work for someone or with someone for 20 years and not know their family's names, not know their kids' names, not know their wife's names. And we're all, not maliciously, I don't think we hide necessarily, but we're all guilty of this to a certain extent, myself included, up until I talked to him, where at work we refer to our significant other as my wife or our kids as my kids, my sons, my daughters, and we don't really refer to them by their names. And we're in an era where we don't really all meet up as much, and you can, theorize all different reasons why. If it would be, you know, distance, like there's no living requirements in the same way anymore, right? And you know, uh, other things, right? That the job's gotten, I don't know, more busy or whatever. People want to theorize however they want. Why we don't spend time together in that. But he said, no, that's not my wife. That's Francine. It's not my son. That's Caden. And that really stuck to me. And I really wanted to share that. And I wanted other people to kind of hear that same theory from Steve. I mean, Steve's great at a lot of things, but one of the biggest things is that and managing a 2.5 by himself, which that's way outside of talking in here. But my God, that dude, something else. I mean, it's impressive. And that's with like, an 1.25 tip too. I mean, it's pretty legit. But that's one thing that I've been trying to change at work is starting to refer to my kids as their names, refer to my wife as Emily. I think that really has kind of been working, and people have been recognizing. Oh, Mike's getting another one.
Philadelphia Fire Department Rescue 1, you'll have a rescue call, 2217 Washington, 2217 Washington at the Pavilion Nursing Home. It's going to be for a 70-year-old female who fell out of bed, hit her head. She is conscious and breathing. It's going to be room 103. Number 3.
I guess, but they're lucky.
She's ordering grab.
Maybe a little different world than mine, but yeah, so yeah, Steve brought that up, and I've been trying to do that at work a lot more, and I've been noticing it's been catching on. I've been sharing that message that he said, and a lot of guys in my department now are referring to their family by their actual names, and it just is making it easier. So now there's actually a little bit more skin in the game, and people are talking to each other in that way. So that's pretty cool. When you're going throughout your day, wife, girlfriend, husband, boyfriend, kids, refer to them by their actual name and not just my kid, my wife. We dropped out there for a minute. I think we're back. That's not good. Now we see what Coralie deals with. If you're jumping in here live, obviously you can see over there is not Mike. Mike's on shift, so Mike's running a call right now. But he should be back, and then we'll start talking. So I can see there's some viewers in there, and it's not just me because I'm not on it. This thing is off. So shout out if you're in the chat right now. Give me something to talk about because I can't just sit here by myself. That's kind of weird. Like, I can read them. Throw something out. I might try to do this. So, my friend Josh, he's dealing with a traumatic brain injury, and he's actually doing some trial treatment right now in Louisiana. He's in New Orleans, and let me see if I can maybe share a link in the comments, but I'm gonna butcher talking about it, to be honest. But so Josh received a traumatic brain injury on the job. They were hose testing, and luckily he was wearing his helmet, but obviously it messed him up. And he's doing hyperbaric chamber treatment to treat like memory loss and some of his other symptoms, and it's been working, and it's a pretty cool thing. And I'm gonna try to get him on at some point. We were talking a little bit today about it. Let me see if I can find it and put it in the chat. so you can check out what he's doing. Because I did share it not too long ago. Otherwise, again, we're just waiting for Josh to come, or sorry, for Mike to come back. So it'll be soon enough. But anyway, yeah, so Josh, he's 2 weeks in. I'm just going to share it in chat. He's 2 weeks in, and he's got 6 more to go, and it's all hyperbaric chamber treatment, and it's in clinical trial. It's pretty interesting. Like, when I first messaged him after, I mean, you could tell, like, he was pretty jacked up, obviously, rightfully so. But when I was texting him today, like, you could see a night and day difference. It's pretty incredible. So, I think at the end of his treatment, I'm going to try to get him to come on and talk about the experience that he had, because it's pretty incredible. I worked with Josh, my last job. Him and I worked together. We were partners, and then his fiance was actually also my partner before, and they're great people. And I've shared stuff on my page before for him, and it's definitely worth checking out. He's got a GoFundMe set up, so obviously. Since it's a clinical trial, insurance won't cover it, and neither will, why can't I think of it? Work comp, they don't cover it either, so it's worth something to check out, for sure. Oop, hearing sounds. I'm just waiting for that garage door to open. If you see up in the top corner, wait, you can see my mouse? No, that's right. I hid my mouse. Either way, we'll see when Mike gets back. To be honest, I don't remember if... I think... Well, we'll find out. I don't know if Mike's in the car or not, but... or he's an engine officer. I don't remember. It's been like 10 years since I've talked to Mike, so we were talking about that before I went live. Chief Tanner, Dad, said, what are some new traditions that your department is doing for retirement promotions, new rigs, and etc.? So... we started doing washdowns maybe a couple years ago with our last chief. He was trying to bring in some more tradition and things like that. My department's fairly young. We went full-time in 1988, and before that, it was a volunteer paid-on-call service. And then, I'm not going to get too much into the history, but, you know, they kind of butted heads. There was some bad blood, and, you know, it kind of developed in that way. So we lost a lot of that stuff in terms of the history. Those guys are, we're building the relationship back up with people retiring, and we actually have a retired fire station in our town that we do a lot of public events. And like I had a diaper party for my firstborn son. We do retirement ceremonies. We just recently had one. Our chief of training, he just retired after 32 years, I believe, and we don't really have like a standard, like this is how you retire. We do a thing with the honor guard, we do a tone out, but otherwise we present them an axe. A couple of people that have retired on my shift, our shift has like gotten them a gift. But the one thing we really have that's really cool, and thank you for the shout out question, because I love plugging this, is we do a challenge coin with retirement. And well, all mine are in a box over there, but when somebody retires, our local, because I'm part of IFF local union, 3191, we collect money, obviously, through dues, and part of our dues goes to challenge coins. So what they were trying to do was set up, you get, I think it was $500 when you retire, that goes towards your challenge coin. And then if you want to pay for anything above that, you know, it would be on your own, but it's enough to just kind of set up, because we lost a couple people. One of which was my lieutenant when I got hired, and captain when he retired, Terry Johnston. He didn't do coins, and I don't know if he didn't do it because he didn't believe in it. Whatever, it is what it is. But like, I really miss, like, I want a coin from Terry, and I think that this was a way that they were trying to make sure that that didn't happen again. That, hey, it doesn't matter if you don't want to drop $500, you have it. Like, make a coin, and I have like 5 or 6 of them now. Just recently got another one for my training chief, which I think my bag's in my truck. Otherwise, I would show you it. We do towels and stuff like that when we get new rigs too. But really, we're to be honest, I kind of feel like we're still trying to find our identity in terms of those traditions and stuff like that. There's a lot of younger guys coming in and getting hired that want those things. There's a lot of senior guys that, it's not that they don't want those things, I just don't think that that was really the focus when they first went full time. I mean, they hired a ton of people, and yeah, I mean, from there, like, they didn't really have time to pay attention to that kind of stuff, I feel like. And that's just my observation. It doesn't mean that that's fact or anything, but yeah, that's pretty much all we really do. So FDIC, thank you again. I have not seen the new Bobby Halton challenge coin. If you could link that in the chat, I would really love that, Chief Dad. I'm just going to call you Dad because it's weird otherwise. So if you want to throw that in there, I'm all about that, because Bobby Halton was like an idol to me, and still is. I mean, even post-mortem. I mean, he's the soul of the fire service, and he always will be, in my opinion. But I'm taking 3 classes at FDIC, and I actually, if you go back on my page, I had a, and let me see if I can go back and find it, but I actually had a list of FDIC classes that, for beginners or people that are kind of new to it. So I got to go way back for this, but I'm hearing backup alarms. That's a good sign. Yeah, I think we're going way back. It was a Google Doc, but I'm taking search. I'm doing a lot of search. I'm finally also doing nozzle forward, Aaron Fields. I've been taught like different things from it, but I've never actually been able to take the class because it's never been available. Where it was at FDIC the other year, but I wanted to build up on some other things. So this year, I'm going to actually get it straight from Aaron Fields himself, which I'm pretty excited about. And then the other 2, I'm doing search classes, which are all live fire, all residential search, modern stuff from FSRI and rescue survey. So packing all that stuff in. And then in terms of the classrooms, I wanted to see Gagliano speak this year, the art to go and no go, because he was sick with COVID last year and I missed it because of that, because he wasn't there. And then I had a couple other ones. I have my list somewhere because I'm nuts and I still do that stuff on paper, probably because you taught me that, Dad. But yeah, from there. But I mean, there's tons of stuff to go do. We got 4 of us going, and I know one of the guys is doing like a tech rescue, like rope class, which sounds pretty exciting. And then the other 2 are lieutenants, and they're doing a bunch of command type stuff. I think one of them was going to do more classroom things with the pre-conference workshops, but yeah. So that's what's happening. I definitely want to see that Bobby Halton challenge coin, though. If those are online, I'm going to have to give that a goog, if you will. All right.
All right.
Oh, sweet. Thanks.
I'm back.
Mike, what's up? Hey, don't worry. The old man threw me a floaty. And he's just dumping questions in my chat for me, so I got stuff to talk
there you
about.
go. Perfect.
All
right.
Hey, Vandenberg, by the way, says Jobtown. So.
Jobtown. We set that fire alarm like nobody's business.
Yeah.
Chalk another one up to recreational cannabis use.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
All right.
For sure.
We're going to do this now, I think. We'll find out.
Well,
all right.
We'll try.
Episode 3, Outlier Firefighters Podcast. I am Alex Tanner. I'm here live with Mike Wolczyz. And we're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff. So most of it, well, maybe not most of it, but I'm going to run through my questions that I'm doing, at least for my longevity thing. And then Mike's got a wealth of knowledge, so Mike's got plenty to talk about outside of what I'm going to yap about. I'm mostly going to shut up this time. So 26 years in, Total.
Yes, sir.
I mean, Mike. You've been everywhere from what you've been describing before, right? I mean, go
Started
ahead.
in Elk Grove Township.
Yeah.
Started in Elk Grove Township the day after I turned 18. And there you go, mechanical difficulties with our ambulance.
Oh.
That's good. Boys will figure it out. I got faith in them. Yeah, so Elk Grove Township, Antioch, Round Lake, Lincolnshire, Waukegan, medical officer at Six Flags Great America, ATEC, taught for the Northwest Lake County Fire Training Cooperative thing for a couple years there. Yeah, right. And then, of course, EMT and paramedic through Vista. Taught for them for a couple years. So
Yeah, that's right.
I'd like to think I've got some pretty well-rounded experience.
Oh yeah, for sure. And village trustee, you got to throw that one in there too. You got the other side.
And of course, so yeah, I was the village trustee from 2007 to 11 for the village of Antioch, which was probably one of the biggest character builders I've ever experienced. And walking into a situation and thinking you're going to have all these great intentions and you're going to work together and things are going to go well was the exact opposite, man. Everything fell apart, and the economy and bankruptcies. And I learned more about water and sewer, economic development, bankruptcy proceedings, Lake Michigan water allocation, you name it, man. It was amazing. Wouldn't trade it for the world, though. Great experience.
Absolutely.
Great experience.
You're currently what position are you in Waukegan?
I'm a lieutenant in Waukegan, and I got promoted in 2019. And so it's been entertaining. So 16 years or so as a blue shirt, and our situation in our department's pretty unusual. So you need 7 years to test for lieutenant, and then seniority at the time was weighted at 17%. So in our department, it's really unusual to see people get promoted before 14, 15 years.
Yeah.
And so to test for captain, you need 5 years time and grade as a lieutenant. So from the January 1st to the date of the test. So I thought I would promote quicker, right? But it was just the system. And I'm grateful for it. I really am. Spending a lot of time just kind of doing the work and learning the craft. So you're not concerned just in a couple of years going, okay, I'm going to move up. It's like, no, man, keep doing. And then working with guys that have been doing it for a whole bunch of years. And so, yeah, that's Waukegan. I'm doing apparatus now. That's kind of my area of specialty, apparatus specifications and procurement. And as some of you know, the challenges with the supply chain. So we ordered engines, and they're delayed 2 years. They're 2 years out now. We bought them last year, and I don't hold any manufacturers at fault or anything. I mean, that's a global issue with everything going on right now. So it doesn't matter the manufacturer. It doesn't matter really anything. Even if you have money, it's like, cool, we'll see you in 40 months.
Yeah, right. You got to wait away.
Right. So yeah, we're working through that. We got 2 ambulances on order, 2 engines on order. Hopefully another ambulance here, a couple other odds and ends, and so that's been keeping me busy as well.
I want to put a pin in that because that was something that I thought when I left Antioch. That was I was the chairperson of that committee, and I was really into it. I really enjoyed it. And I still nerd out with it, but I found training was more where I was going to head with things, and that's whatever. But I do want to actually talk because so few people really actually understand or are ever really even taught apparatus design and built and buying. So I'll put a pin in that. We'll maybe talk about that in a little bit. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's get rolling then. So,
all right, buddy. What else you got?
What initially interested you in the fire service, and what made you decide to pursue it as a career?
So, full disclosure here, I originally wanted to be a cop.
Whoa.
Man, I thought I was going to go into law enforcement, to be honest. And that goes back for, years and years and years. So in my junior year of high school, I did an internship with the Elk Grove Village Police Department through a high school program. And it was a tremendous program. Even looking back at it now, the things that they allowed us to do was amazing. It, of course, required parental all kinds of signatures. I don't even know if we could do some of that stuff today, but I mean, we went on a bunch of ride-alongs. They brought us in every whatever it was Tuesday night or something like that, and there would be a topic. There'd be an officer, would talk about either investigations, who would talk about all the operations within the police department. We probably did maybe a dozen ride-alongs. It was a very active thing. We learned a ton about it. And one thing I learned and experienced was like, there's a lot of people that aren't happy to see you. Now we're going back to 1996. And it was kind of enlightening a little bit. But the cool part about it was we'd go on medical calls, we'd go on fire alarms, we'd go on car accidents. And I was like, oh, God, those guys actually look like they're having a lot more fun, a lot more camaraderie, and the rigs are a little cooler. So my senior year, I did an internship with the Oak Grove Village Police, or with the fire department. And then I rode at Station 8 when it was on Landmeyer Road, assigned to Lieutenant Guglielmo, who was a hazmat guy. And if anybody, obviously, some people know Oak Grove Village has a huge industrial park. And so that was one of their areas of expertise. And so I still remember like a guy named Roger Ferguson, Mark Blackaller, who actually I just found out passed away recently about a year or two ago, right after retirement, just a couple of years, man. It kind of horrible to hear, but super nice guy. And those guys kind of really set the stage for me. Matt Reedy was another one. He was a younger guy. And I know Roger Ferguson retired. Obviously, I mentioned about Mark. I don't know about Matt or Reedy. No idea. But anyway, I like 20 some years ago, right? So you're talking maybe 28 years. I still remember their names. And they took the time out and they're like, oh, okay, well. And I remember the first time I breathed out of an SCBA mask, it was Mark Blackaller. And he's like, well, let me show you this and whatnot. And he's like, you're not sick, are you? And I'm like, no, I'm good. Okay, cool. So this is how it works. And I'm like, oh, all right. I remember that 27 years later, 28 years later.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it made an impression on me of like, take the time.
I feel you.
That you take for granted. And especially as time goes on and that, but really take the time. And, that was probably my first experience just learning to pass it down. These guys took time out of their day to kind of teach me. I mean, I was a ride along. I was a senior in high school and I was like, oh, okay, all right, whatever. And, but that moment in the time made an impact.
For sure.
So now, now you get your firefighter 2 and now you have newer people coming in and it's like, oh, wow, hey, wait, it's my turn. And so those things catch on quicker. And so for the guys out there, man, like those moments are very memorable. They're very memorable to the new people coming in. So, and I think that's really changed my view a lot on like working with probationary firefighters and that to kind of create an environment that's welcoming.
Yeah,
man, we used to be the lion's den and people would be terrified of us. That's not what you want in the situation. So,
yeah. I can't remember who I was talking to somebody at work and we were talking about like mentors or people that
fix the siren.
Yeah. People that made this huge impact that maybe they don't even know that they made a huge impact on you, right? Similar story. I was a teenager, and my dad was in Highland Park, and he put me with some guys that were just rock stars, and to this day still are. I've talked to a couple HP guys that are my age, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's still into it," and all those things. I mean, I remember they go, "Hey kid, here we lit a fire in there. Go see how close you can crawl to it without a mask on." I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay," and then come out and crying and coughing, and then they go, "All right, that's why you wear a mask, kid."
Like, okay. Don't do that again. You just told me to do that.
Yeah, what? And like, you'll just remember like those moments forever.
For sure.
Yeah, I love it. Cool. So with that, did those guys? My next question in here was, how'd you learn about culture and like the ethos that we live, by and kind of like our code of honor, if you will?
So I would say it's different everywhere. And that's, I think, what's unusual about the fire service is just how different it is, right? So I'm in Waukegan, and we've got our culture, we've got our values, we've got our traditions. We go right next door to Gurnee, totally different. So different, right? So I think being in so many different places, when I was, like I said, right after I turned 18, Gary Jensen, who was the chief of Elk Grove Township at the time, he gave me a chance. This, again, 18-year-old kid, like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this. And he's okay. There was an interview process and all that, of course. But he gave me that chance. And so from there, I mean, from 18 to 21, I couldn't test anywhere. Wasn't old enough. So I got a chance to work, taking every opportunity, working part-time, working Metro and everything else. So I was fortunate enough to see so many different cultures with the different organizations, with Round Lake and Antioch and different status. When I walked into Antioch, when I moved up into Lake County, and I was like, yeah, but how many people do you have on duty? They're like, what, dude? No, we don't have any. There's nobody here. I'm like, yeah, but who goes on calls? And they're like, oh, they come in from home. And I'm like, so there's nobody in the new culture to me, man. So that was a whole different experience. And I think it's important to just take it back, right? Don't question it and go, oh, that's not right.
Yeah.
It's just different. And I think what we're losing, not just in the fire service, but as a society, is we don't seek to understand anymore, right? Yeah. So we see all these things about social media, and they're programmed to just go, well, if you like this, we're going to do this. And that's what the algorithm's set up for. So we really don't get the other side. We have to actively seek out that other side. So if somebody says, I like oranges and I like apples, well, why do you like oranges? We don't do that anymore. It's like, oh, he doesn't like oranges. Well, forget him. So with all the different personalities and cultures in the fire service right now, just from the membership, not even the organization, the amount of people, we're up to 123 personnel right now. It's the most we've ever had here in the city of Waukegan, sworn firefighters, and which is awesome. So many different cultures, so many different backgrounds, so many different experiences, so many different skill sets. So why would you shut that out? Why do you think that you're better? Right? So if some guy goes, yeah, man, I grew up in Lithuania. Literally, we have a guy that grew up over there. And I'm like, wow, well, how'd you end up here? Oh, I came up here when I was totally awesome. Just again, learning about culture and learning about things like that. We have another guy. He grew up we had a couple, just growing up extremely poor and in the projects. And he told me a story where he thought it was normal to just go and pick up your check. That's just what they knew. And the drugs and the alcohol. And that was a normal lifestyle for him as he was growing up when he was 7, 8, 9 years old and all that. Now an outstanding firefighter.
Yeah.
One of the most articulate, well-spoken gentlemen I know. So again, just learning about the people in your culture or in your organization, learning about their culture and being all the different places I've been and talking to just everybody and just asking questions that I find interesting. The older I get, the more I learned how beneficial that was.
Yeah. Do you think that, I don't know if you've followed Scott Thompson at all and his whole theories on culture, and he's in the Colony, Texas, and he wrote a book called Functional Fire Company, and he talks about culture and a macro culture, where basically that would be like what Ray McCormick would say, or what John Sulka would like our more or less like our Mount Rushmore of firefighters. They've kind of established like what we are supposed to be. Do you find that still exists to a certain extent, that or do you think that that's kind of been lost in terms of that like overall macro culture? I'm all about, by the way, departments having their own identity. I totally agree with you there. I've gotten to experience some of that myself too, not quite to the extent that you have, but and that's healthy. I think that is healthy. Like it should be that
for
way.
Sure.
But anyway,
I think it's just changed. I don't think we never lose anything. I think we migrate. And I think when we attach the term like lost, I think that's a biased or it's kind of a predetermined negative statement. So it's just different. Back in the day, they used to feed the horses. I don't do that anymore. It's just things change. We've evolved. And with technology right now, with social media out there right now, and then just it's a different generation in the fire station now. And I hear the stories about, back in the day, we used to solve all the problems at the kitchen table, and but shift change, it's a ghost town. And I'll tell you right now, in my organization, that's not the case, not even close.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate. I'm very fortunate to be part of an organization like that. We've got a lot of things. A lot of guys pitch in for others when they need that. So I just think the culture or the macro culture has changed, but it's really what you make of it too.
I still think like us as firefighters still believe in like valor and brotherhood and those are the things, right? And I think that
for sure,
and it's still foundationally there, right?
Right.
That's what that macro culture, if you will, would be. I think that educating people on what that is has been, I think, our struggle in the fire service is we just expect people to come in and get that when they don't. Like,
no,
unless they're taught.
It's learned.
Yeah.
Right. It's something that you'll be exposed to. It's something that you may adapt to. It's something that you may add to, and it's like I said, it's so different everywhere that there's certainly no one size fits all. So to kind of, when we say tradition and culture, we really flash back and we think about back in the day.
Yeah.
But we have culture today. We have tradition today, and that tradition just looks different than what we used to do, and that's okay. And I think some of the older guys are really, they have a hard time adjusting to that. But I'll tell you what, man, when some of these newer guys come in and I'm having IT problems, they're the first people I go to. And I'm like, hey, question for you. Oh, yeah, man, it's easy. Here, let me show you. Yeah. Phenomenal, right? So now that guy feels value because I said, hey, are you aware of this stuff or whatever? And when they can solve your problems, that creates that cultural feeling. Go, hey, man, I'm kind of part here. I can contribute. You're not telling them that, oh, hey, shut up, get in the corner. Don't ask questions, It's a different world. And so as we migrate, as I say, it'll change. It'll constantly change. There's going to be guys sitting here 25 years down the road, and they're going to be talking about whatever it may be, like, oh, my God, can you believe they used to do that? And it's just what it is. It's changed, and it'll continue.
Awesome. So then segueing, not really a good segue, but you already kind of mentioned some names, but who influenced you the most early in your career? So kind of back to that. Maybe you didn't get to ever tell them that, or maybe you have. I don't know.
Right. Man, there's so many. And like the first guys, right, that you had contact with and that, like those guys at Station 8 and Elk Grove Village, certainly like, man, this is awesome. They were nice. This was fun. This was neat. And never saw any fires there, of course. It was quiet, right? You hear about stories, of course. But I would say that there's people not just early on, but just like along the way. Chris Leanhart, it was funny. I had to do a project for my undergrad, and it was about like a leadership thing in that. And I was trying to think of somebody that like had a lot of diverse background, somebody that could really excel. And it's one thing to be good on one street and one path, but to do that in various aspects, in different industries, and I'm like, man, Chris is the guy. So I ended up telling him, like, hey, man, I was wondering if I could interview for it. Certainly somebody that can adapt the way that he did. And, the executive director at Red Center, deputy chief in the village of Antioch. And he was great helping me out when I got elected because he grew up in that community. So he was a great reference. Going back to history, right? So if we don't study the history and understand where we've been, how are we going to proceed forward without spinning our tires and just repeating and just wasting time and energy? We talk about efficiency nowadays, right? Do more with less and be cost effective and all that. Well, let's study with what we've done, what didn't work. And I think that's important to kind of sort of wrap your head around, right? So knowing those historical Chris in the village of Antioch, man, he's been around forever. Great, so still lives there, and always part of the community of the Park District, whatnot. Chris had a great impact, and I remember walking in right when I started at Antioch. He was the PIO, he was the lieutenant, he was the outgoing guy. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Where are you from? Oh my God, down there. Are you lost? But again, it was that like, oh, this guy's kind of nice. All right, cool.
He was part of getting me in too. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
They started the Explorer program, and he got me in.
Yeah, absolutely. When I started in Round Lake, I think I was 19, or I was 20. I was 20 years of age, and as a Metro employee, and Eric Hare, Jimmy DeVito, Charlie Mitchell. He just started at that point, I think. I know there's others. And even Paul Mapplethorpe, right? That name, some people love him, some people don't
Some
love
people,
him.
yeah.
But I mean, he was great to me. He was to the point. He was respectful. Um, Paul was Paul, man. It's what it is. So I'd say he's all those guys, man. And there's so many to really name. I don't think I could name them all by any stretch.
I mean, those are. I didn't realize how much our beginnings overlapped because I was in Rom Lake too for a year, and you just named off names that I would have probably said the same things. I mean, DeVito's
Right.
retired
And
now. Charlie's close.
I feel bad. I know there's more.
Oh yeah. Well, for
So
me, it was
I didn't
Andy
mention
Wells.
their name.
Andy Wells
Yeah,
was mine.
yeah.
Oh
Andrew,
man,
right?
Andy
Yep.
was just absolutely
From the
best.
Antioch days.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, knew him. Trevor Crivello. All those guys. It's cool to see too how everybody's kind of come up and ended up in different places all
Yeah.
throughout the county, and actually all through the state and nation and all that. I mean, there's people everywhere.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. Dad, your link didn't work for whatever you were bringing up, so if you want to try to send that again, Mike and I will talk about it at the end. So, what keeps you passionate about the fire service? What keeps you locked into it?
Frustration.
Okay, please enlighten me with that.
Right. Yeah. No. Literally that's the first word that I thought of. So we've been given a gift when we're providing service, man. We get to see people in their worst times, and I know that that's been said a lot. When you think about it, what kind of other opportunity do you have to change to truly make an impact? We can make an impression, and well, that was nice, but truly make an impact and be like, man, these were the people that were there, when we were in that car accident or we had that fire or anything else. So to be good at that, right? You don't want the sea crew showing up on your worst day. And so delivering really a quality product and learning from your mistakes and being the best that you can be, given the situation, of course. We've all been part of operations that haven't gone well. And I think that's what kind of determines the character. And going back to culture, if you have a call or something, things aren't going well, or you have equipment, you're missing equipment, right? Those black eyes of operational failures. Like, man, the batteries were dead in this. We could do better. That's not acceptable, right? Not only from a moral or ethical standpoint, but even legally. Like,
Yeah.
this should never happen. So knowing the challenges that we've had in the fire service too. So go back 20 years. And if you told me, hey man, we're going to be wearing bulletproof vests, we're going to have Kevlar helmets, we're going to be talking about doing rapid task force stuff with law enforcement, be like, that'll never happen. So I think it's one of those things where, like, the fire service is the jack of all trades and the master of none. We get everything. So of course, the fire service, we always have that can-do attitude. So it's like, yeah, all right, we'll do that too. All right, hey guys, I need to do EMS. Sounds good. What are little band-aids in that? Now it's, right? It's so, how we've progressed and the amount of stuff that we can do nowadays to make that impact. I think that's what kind of keeps it fresh, and everything continues to change. It's not just, okay, well, the EMS has gotten more complicated. I'll tell you right now, when people are saying that fires are down, no, they're not. No, they're not. I think we've had 23 structure fires this year here in our town. It's been an anomaly. And I think we talk about how the furnishings have changed. So the fire behaviors change. We've talked about flow path. We've talked about that kind of thing, transitional attacks. It continues to just evolve. And I think that's where the passion comes in to kind of go, well, it's interesting. Is this true? Well, the science says this and this and this. And it's like, okay, have I seen that? Or did I just not recognize it when it happened? I think so. From the old guys, let's say back 3 decades, when we didn't have all the combustible furnishings made of petroleum products and plastics. Obviously, you've seen all those things where legacy furniture, it takes 20 minutes to flash, and our current furnishings are 3 minutes,
Yeah.
180 seconds, and you have zero survivability with a flashover. I think our next, I would almost say it's evolved into a slow motion explosion. And that's what we're battling right now. The houses are tighter than ever, the efficiency, and that's been going on for a while. What I think our next hurdle is going to be is this lithium ion battery crisis. And I call it a crisis because I just don't think we all have enough information yet. And I'm not even referring to the electric vehicle situation. The FDNY has been battling this now for a couple of years with these e-bike scooter fires and
Yeah.
the sizable fires that they've had in high rises and multifamily dwellings, with losses of life and significant injuries. So I think, while they're obviously, you got a population of 7-8 million people, I think we're going to begin experiencing that. We're going to start seeing that. We have on a couple of occasions, like with the news, people have picked up stuff on their cameras and that in their house. But I think that's going to be our next challenge, where all of a sudden, you have this crazy fire and people trapped, and that, because again, we have batteries and everything. They're laptops and cell phones, and now we have all these scooters and all this other stuff. So I think that's going to be our next little fire challenge. So if the petroleum products and the synthetics weren't enough, now we have this chemical chain reaction that just spontaneously combusts. So that's going to be another challenge. So yeah, I think getting back to the passion, it's just the ever evolving environment to truly provide the service.
Yeah. No,
Keeps you going, man.
I love it. Right. You're always seeking
Right.
knowledge.
Yeah, and you
what
have
a
to.
platform. I mean, being firefighters, that we get. You're right about opportunity to help people. I mean, absolutely. And then on the other end, I
Right.
mean, we have more opportunity to experience things that nobody else gets to and learn about.
Right.
Because we
Right.
have to fix it.
Firsthand.
Hmm.
Right.
Like if you would have told me I know a little bit about elevators and a little bit about lithium ion batteries and a little bit about,
Mhm.
I would have never thought about all that stuff when I was sitting in a basement learning about the fire triangle. Like it's
Right.
crazy.
Yep. Absolutely.
By the way, Vandenberg says it all went downhill with those hybrid drivers. That's funny.
Hey, mine hasn't started on fire yet, buddy.
Yeah, all right. Leave him alone.
That's right. He's not wrong.
Oh, that's funny. I actually got that too. I think I remember. Whatever. Either way. Okay.
No more big ends for that guy. Wait a minute. I owe him, actually.
Was there ever a point within your career that you've lost that passion? And then if you did,
Absolutely.
how'd you get it back?
Absolutely, man. If you are truly invested in whatever it is, I don't care if it's relationships. Well, actually, relationships is a broad term. I don't care if it's marriage, kids, fire department, fire service, whatever it may be. It's a love-hate relationship, and it will. It's gonna ebb and flow, man. I promise you that. When I first started with Waukegan, it was the coolest thing ever. Right? We're busy. We're running these calls, and it's crazy, and it's like it's everything you wanted. And then it's exactly what you wanted. Not sleeping at night, busy all the time, people not being thrilled with you. Sometimes our clientele is a little difficult to work with. And again, they're frustrated, or they're having a bad moment, or they're having a medical condition that they can't get treatment for because of how the system is. They take it out on you, and that gets tough, man. There's situations where you think things could have been done better, and because we're passionate about what we do, that turns into frustration when we think differently because we have such dominant personalities. And so it becomes a love-hate relationship. And I think it's a natural cycle, and that's okay, right? So when we're talking about things like mental health, and I think after all the things that I've heard, regarding mental health, whether it be depression, anxiety, all of those things that we're now finally trying to get out there, right? And we're not there yet, but I think we're doing a much better job. I was probably experiencing some of those things with either PTSD or depression or anxiety, or, and I would call them, I'm frustrated. Well, I'm exhausted, right? So when I was working 3 jobs, I had a divorce back in 2013. And it was a lot, man. My plate was way full. And I will say there was one gentleman that I was teaching with at the time. And he pulled me aside. You know, we talk about somebody that's memorable, and he pulled me aside and he's just like, "Hey, Mike, man, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why? Fine. Why? What? Yeah, I'm fine. Of course I'm fine." You know. And he's just like, "Listen, man, you look burnt out. You're not yourself. Like, what's going on?" And I'm like, "Man, I got, I'm remodeling this house. I'm teaching here. I'm working here. We've been busy as can be. At the fire. I'm exhausted, man." So, it, that was 10 years ago right now. And he did that. So again, talk about somebody memorable, just recognizing that. And that stands out to me today. So now hearing a little bit more about the mental health, I'm sure I was having issues I probably should have got treatment for, or at least, talk to somebody about. I didn't. I've since been remarried. I have a son and a stepdaughter, and it's changed again, perspective, right? And so, yeah, that love hate relation, it's natural. And I will say that you get frustrated with work, then you love work. Then you get frustrated with it, and then you love it. So, if you're truly into it, if you didn't have those ups and downs, I don't think you're passionate like about the situation.
Yeah.
We only get frustrated because we care.
Yeah.
If we didn't care, whatever.
That is true.
Yeah.
So to get it back, you just weathered the storm, or you recognized it and you were able to kind of get back on the up curve again, or did you?
So I weathered this. I weathered the storm, and so my way to cope with like all of that stuff going on, like with the divorce and all that, and then you go from a double income household to now by yourself, and now you've got. So there was financial stresses, and then there was an emotional stress, kind of going, man, where do I go from here? I'm like, well, I'm 32, 33 years old. Holy shit. I didn't anticipate me being in this position. Nobody does, right? And so I started taking time for myself. My theory was if I buried myself in work, I wouldn't have to deal with it. And then on the frugal side of things, I'm like, well, if I'm working, I'm not spending money, I'm making money. so that was healthy in some aspects, but I think it went too far. And then when I got pulled aside by that guy Everett, he said, "Man, what are you doing, man? You gotta take care of yourself. You're not taking care of yourself right now." That was kind of the reset button. And so, at that point, cut back a little bit on hours and just started taking a look around as opposed to just going to the next thing and going to the next thing and going to the next thing. So I think that was kind of my treatment, if you will, just to kind of go, hey man, slow down.
Yeah.
You're going to kill yourself at this rate. And for what? So yeah, that certainly helped. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I was to do it all over again, knowing what I know now about mental health and stuff, I certainly would have sought treatment. I absolutely would have talked to somebody with the resources that we have in place now that we probably didn't back then.
Yeah.
And I even thinking about like, oh, well, would it have been a tough guy? I'd be like, no, it's just uncharted territory, right? We look at it as a weakness, historically or traditionally, we've looked at it as a weakness where it's like, well, it's not a weakness, man. You just don't know. And so what do we do today when we don't know? Oh, we're going to the Google machine, or we're looking something up, or we're trying to find an answer, not just ignore.
Yeah.
So just do that. Just apply it to mental health.
I'm going to plug, and I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
Let me get it in here. So there's an organization out there called Next Rung. And what they do is it's basically firefighter counseling by firefighters. And it's all free. I threw the link up in the chat. But it's a peer support network that's not, part of like your EAPs or, anything like that. It's anonymous. It's over the phone. They do a bunch of different fundraisers and I think stuff like that. But awesome website for if you are listening to this or you're watching whatever. Next Rung's the website. If you're listening, if you're watching live, the link is in this in our chat right now. But I haven't used them personally, but I've heard great things about them. So
good.
Yeah,
right.
I can tell you when I had kids, it changed for me. And I'm good now, but I needed like the Band-Aid to get ripped off, more or less, right?
Yeah.
Like I needed my first pediatric call. I needed it to, I needed those things in order to, okay, I'm good. I can handle it. And that was my first run in because really in terms of, and we're getting off on a tangent, but that's fine. Mental health is something to talk about for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
Right.
I used to feel guilty that I wasn't messed up when I should have been messed up, and that was my biggest hurdle. Was feeling guilt from that, and I've come a long way since then, and I much better. But there's still miles to go for everyone in terms of mental health and talking about things, and I think that's really changed a whole lot in the fire service. I mean, for Next Rung exists, like that wouldn't have existed 10 years ago, probably even 5 years ago. So
for sure, I think now that it's becoming a little bit more, I don't want to say acceptable, because then it wasn't acceptable before,
yeah,
but almost commonplace, and so case in point, when you walk in every day, you're on shift, right? You come in, you're 100%. No, you're not.
no,
You're human.
yeah,
You don't do everything. You're going to do perfectly every time. No. And that's kind of the thing, like a company officer walking in, and you can tell. I had it happen yesterday. One of my guys, I'm like, hey, man, you're a little sluggish today. Are you good, man? What's going on? He's like, oh, I was just, man, my wife and I, we just had a nice night last night. And I'm like, gotcha, man. All right. So, but yeah, it was out of norm. But I'm like, okay, so that's why you're tired. You're not stressed out. You're not trying to figure out. You're not fighting with the kids, and so to kind of be aware. And I know there's days where I wasn't coming in 100%, and it's just human nature. It's not going to happen all the time.
yeah.
So recognize that, be conscious of it, and work with the team. Man, you're a team. So
Yeah.
absolutely. Excuse me.
Oh, man. So we kind of more or less talked about some of this a little bit earlier, but when we're talking about macro culture and that kind of stuff. But,
Yeah.
So fire departments all over the country, right? We all have individuals that have lost it, right? We all have individuals on our department that maybe they were, something years ago, and then they've lost whatever passion or whatever drive they have for the job. What can we do to repair that and help those people, or whatever?
I would go back. There's always history. Things just don't come out of the blue. There's people that are passionate about an organization. They're passionate about the job. Maybe they didn't get a promotion. Maybe they didn't get an appointment. Figure out what that history is and go from there. Right? So it's always a new day, and there's always opportunity down the road. And we have all experienced failure. If you tested for fire departments back in the day, rejection was the norm. And if you got hired, that was winning the lottery.
Yeah.
We don't fail enough, I think, as a society to understand that that's a learning curve. It's okay to fail, because if you're not failing, you're not trying. And so the people that do have that loss, where they're disengaged, figure out there's something they're passionate about. And it might have been firefighting, 10 years ago, but then they didn't get the break that they wanted. And so they're like, nope, I'm checked out. Screw it. Whatever. Try and get them engaged again. Figure out what it is. Hey, man, if they love fishing, or if they love whatever, right? They're into cars, or they have whatever hobby. Get them talking about it. Because passion, covers all types of different planes. So if you can kind of make those connections, because at the end of the day, we're in the human being business, and it's about making connections and building, right? So we know if we go on a call and it's a SIDS call, or there's obvious signs of death with a family member or loved one in a car accident, or the 2-year-old that whatever just ended up passed away in their crib. This is obviously going to be very notable for the family. It's going to be notable for you as responders, and then even people on your crew that never had an experience like that. So you're going to make connections, make them positive, right? Because you can't do anything to fix the situation, but you can make it memorable and about as positive as you could on the outcome. But also be realistic about it, right? For those of you out there that have had to tell somebody that their loved one has passed away or dead, it sucks, right? So that's something they're going to remember for the rest of their life. And that, again, breaks down to being passionate and making those human connections. So for somebody experiencing a giant tragedy like that, for somebody that's experiencing burnout at work and has, the stop clock going, okay, I retire in 4 years, 37 days, 27 minutes, and 16 seconds. I get it. And you're like, what are you going to do after retirement when you get out of here, man? And, I'll tell you what, I'm going to Tennessee and I'm going to fish and I'm going to do this. Be like, what part of Tennessee? What's down there? I've never been there. And then you get them talking again. Then they're like in a better mood.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with the job. It has nothing to do with the industry, but it makes their situation a little better. You might learn a little bit of something, and it's just making those connections. So now all of a sudden you care. And when people show that you are genuine and you care, that's how you make those connections. That's what I would say. And again, it's everybody's different. Every situation's different. I'm sure there's some people that you just can't change, and they're just going to be miserable, and it's what it is.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can only do so much.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Oh, awesome answer. So who do you know, or who have you experienced, if you will, over time? So it doesn't have to be somebody you necessarily worked with or for, that personifies like dedication to the fire service, and what makes them special.
Interesting. So I would say, the first name that pops into my head, this is going to start a whole nother rant. Mo Davis from Houston, district chief out there. And the first time I saw him was on TV, and he was talking about the current situation in the Houston Fire Department. And he flat out said, he's like, what I'm doing right now is career suicide, but this needs to be told. And we are here for the citizens and the residents that need us. That is our responsibility. And this is why I'm here. And this is why I do this. And I was like, wow, holy cow. Well, what's going on in Houston? Right. So now it's like, oh, hey, let's check out what's going on in Houston. Who's this Mo Davis guy? And he's got this all kinds of crazy stuff. I've never seen him in person, but he's got so much stuff out there. He's always posting things. Now I know Houston is a extremely aggressive department. They've had some significant line of duty deaths in the past 20 years. And I know we can always go hindsight and we can always say, oh, yeah, they shouldn't have been in that McDonald. Oh, they shouldn't have done that. Oh, that captain in that high-rise fire and dying on that fifth floor. Going back to culture, right? And I'll give you another example. Baltimore City, when that townhome and that row house fire happened and killed those 3 firefighters. People will have an opinion, and they should have never been it. They should have never done it. This shouldn't have happened. This shouldn't have happened. It's like, I don't work in Baltimore City, man. And I don't know your culture, and I don't know your situation. I know there's a lot of vacants out there with row homes and whatnot. People live in those. In Detroit and some of these other poor areas of the country, people, that's their home. And so when our mission is to save lives and protect property, we hear about the bad one. We hear about those 3 firefighters being killed in a collapse or whatever the situation was, right? We don't hear about how many people they've rescued in comparable situations. And so I would never sit there and say, oh, that was dumb. I just don't know. It's their culture. It's how they operate and everything else. Some of the stuff that we may do as an organization in Waukegan, people might look at and go, dude, that's insane. I can't believe, why would you do that? And it's like, well, we do that because this is our building construction. These are our policies. These are our resources, and it works for us. And so I will dovetail this into something that I appreciate the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation and everything that they have done. The only thing I'm conflicted with is that statement of everybody goes home. And I completely understand what it means, but I'm not sure I agree with that statement itself, right? So we're doing our best in the industry with research and technology and training and education to try and minimize line of duty deaths, firefighter deaths. Put your seatbelt on, take care of yourself, exercise, try and eat decent, right? Eat right. We know what's good for us, what's bad for us. We can extend that into the mental health aspect, right? It's okay to not be okay. We've got all these things out there. But at the end of the day, things are still going to happen beyond our control, no matter how much we try. If I was a fire chief in the ABC Fire Department and I said, every fire will go out, every life will be saved, and there will be no loss, is that a realistic statement? We're setting ourselves up for failure, right? Now, with that being said, and I know people that's going to rub some people the wrong way, here's what I say to you. Instead of concentrating about an outcome, let's stay focused on the objectives and the mission. Know your building construction, know your still districts, know your city, know your target hazards, know your PPE, know the skills and abilities of your crews, know when you've got some new guys and those skills or abilities, they're just not there yet. Know who can work independently and who cannot. Know the capabilities of your aerial apparatus. Know the capabilities of your ground ladders, right? So focus on the skills and the tasks to get things done. Let's focus on that, right? Those are controllable risk factors. There's nothing to say. And actually, Buffalo, New York, prime example. That's another one. That's even better than the Baltimore situation. They're fighting ordinary construction downtown. Antioch has them. Waukegan has them. Round Lake has them. Those buildings are all over the place, right? Those downtown areas. Buffalo's not a slow fire department. I don't believe they're an inexperienced fire department. Something bad happened. And was it foreseen? And was it, we saw the videos. We saw this rapid change in fire behavior. It's one of those things, man. And we try and do what we can, but it's just at the end of the day, there's always that possibility of risk. So I guess in another mindset. So talk about culture. So I guess you can look back in your organizations and do people say, let's talk about this if this was to happen. Well, what happens if there's a fire here? What happens if we have this plane go down here? Well, that's fine, and we can talk about it. But now I use those same statements and I say, what happens when we have that fire on that third floor? What happens when the engine fails to go into pump? What happens when we have a firefighter through the floor? And as simple as changing one word in those statements, it changes that mindset. Hey, today, if we have a fire out on the west side of town, with the weather being bad and our second dues being slow to kind of be there, yeah, we got 5 guys here. That's great. What happens when somebody's trapped upstairs? What happens when we have a child in cardiac arrest and the house is still burning, right? Pick those priorities. And if it doesn't happen, it was a great training lesson, but it's a mindset. I've seen some stuff on like LinkedIn and Facebook and they have different pages. And I'd love to give credit for people that have posted it. I don't know who it is, but you'll see things on dashboards in the rigs that says like expect fire, expect victims.
Yep, Von Appen.
It's that mindset.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name. I should know.
It stood out. It was one of those things.
That's what it is. Mark Von Appen. Yeah.
There you go. And so, but yeah, it's that mindset. So now if you're constantly thinking like, yep, when I left, right, at 8:00 and I said, okay, we're going to this hotel, it's going to be on fire. All right. Well, instead of just, all right, well, I'm not going to zip my coat. I don't need my gloves. Do I really need to grab the air pack off the rig? It's heavy. And well, we just had a fire there 3 weeks ago. So, and again, it's just that mindset, being prepared. And again, not to bash the everyone goes home statement. And I'm not saying throw caution to the wind, but I don't want us to look like a culture or create a culture of selfishness. You make good money, you got great benefits, and but you also have a great responsibility.
Yeah.
And if I'm at home and I'm sleeping, right, or I'm at work tonight, right, my family's in their house and they have a fire, I don't want somebody going, oh gosh, that looks dangerous, I don't know if I want to go in, because we got to make sure we're okay. It's like really conflicted about that. Now, I'm not saying, again, don't be on a suicide mission, but if you know your buildings, if you know your equipment, if you know your capabilities of your crew, you know your water supply, if you know those things, your performance will carry you a lot further to achieve the objective and to prevent injury and fatalities. Like I said, I know it's going to rub some people the wrong way, but it's all about focus.
I feel like that particular mindset is not rubbing people the wrong way anymore. I really think that that's becoming there's a resurgence of that thought process, and it's
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. And that was a lot of why I started the page and I started this stuff, was to try to find more people that think like that, and it's everywhere. I mean, and I it's becoming more of the norm. You know how people always say, "Hey, stay safe out there." People are starting to kind of not even say those things anymore. They're
Right.
right.
Just get the job done.
Right, like. One of my favorite things, again, Scott Thompson, because I'm a nerd about his stuff, is he says, if we're being smart, we're being safe, right?
Absolutely.
Totally exactly
Absolutely.
what you just said. It's about, it's up here, right?
Right.
And then
Think about-
you got to have it here too first, but
Right.
but yeah,
Mission, values, your mission statement, your organization, right, should set the tone for everything.
yeah,
And I believe that with the leadership stuff and everything else. So if your organization is doing those things well, preparing your guys well, creating a culture, trying to prevent complacency as much as possible. And it is difficult, man. It's, if you're in a town that doesn't see a lot of fire and get a lot of calls and everything else, and it's just another one. It's a very conscious effort to prevent that mindset. So when you start thinking about, hey, if we have this happen, or when this happens, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do here? Yeah, people get burned out on EMS, but what a great opportunity to see all the residential construction in your response district.
yeah.
One of my new guys that I was working with just last shift, we had a great opportunity. It was a older part of town. We call it the Gardens in that. And it's just unique. There was no back door on the house. There was a front door. There was a side door. But the lesson learned there was those side doors or the back door in that part of the town, 95% of the time, that's where the stairs to the basement are. So if we have a basement fire, which we get them, look for those doors. Look, that's your spot. If you have somebody going on or protecting those, that's where it's going to be. And he's just like, oh. So then as we're riding back through that part of town, he's like, oh yeah, they had a side door and they had a side door and they had a side door. So just simple stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now who's to say that doesn't pay off for him in 15 or 20 years, just to go, oh my God, how silly was that? But so notable.
Yeah.
We have the best technology we've ever had. We have the best training available that we've ever had. We're not getting the fires of yesteryear, but they're certainly not going away, and they're a lot different than they've ever been. So with transitional attacks and flow path and all that other stuff, people debate, oh, I'm not spraying water in a window. And I think what I will tell, I think my response to that is like, do what works for your organization. Because if you have tactics that require 35 people in the first 10 minutes and you're getting 6,
Good luck.
I don't think it's going to be a recipe for success. That is going to get people hurt. That's where you start having these issues, right? So be realistic and train on your capabilities with your resources.
Tactics are local.
Sure.
Corley Moore says that all the time. Tactics are local. You can't.
Oh yeah.
You can't apply somebody else's department's tactics to your department. It doesn't make sense. You can pull things
and
from
you
it.
cannot expect people to have these perfect outcomes when you don't train and really prepare in a risky environment.
Yeah.
Right. So if you are being ultra safe on the fire ground, or I don't want to say safe, you want to be ultra conservative.
There you go.
Oh, it's smoke. Be careful. All right. And that's fine. If that's the level that you're operating at, then that's what it is. That's what you have to provide. But also realize if you don't have that experience and training in a marginal situation where, it's not looking good, the smoke's looking ugly, and somebody is confirming there's a trapped person in a bedroom in there. Well, you've never really been in a nasty environment, right? We've been very conservative. That's probably not the time to do it the first time. So again, operating smart, operating intelligently, knowing your limitations, knowing your capabilities, knowing all that stuff, knowing the variables, minimize your variables.
Love it. Absolutely. So, wrapping up my questions, and then fair game. What would you say is the most important element for having a long and dedicated career?
Balance. 100% balance. And I will tell you that because I was so far out of whack for a period of my life and my career, working 100 hours a week, and that's not healthy, right? So I think taking care of yourself physically, mentally, physiologically, have a hobby, mental health, uh, be a fireman. It's cool to be a fireman. Don't always be a fireman, man. Turn that switch off a little. We always are, right? What's his name from Backdraft? The
Yeah.
firemen. I don't know about firemen. They're always firemen. We are, but go do something else. Give your brain a break. You need that release. That time off, and it's okay. I mean, geek out if you want, and if that's your thing, great, have at it. But certainly balance, man, between a personal life and a professional life, and your well-being. Go enjoy things. Life is short. I mean, the fact of 26 years in the fire service already has gone by in a blink of an eye. Can't believe how fast it's gone. Um, I'm going to be saying that in 20 years, man. When my kids are grown, I'm going to be like, good Lord, where'd the time go? So, yeah, take the time, look around. Balance for sure.
I love it. Yeah. Uh, Absolutely. Well, cool. Well, that wraps up my questions. We can talk about apparatus building, or we can talk about whatever
Gross.
you wanted to talk about.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, no. So I mean, really, I think I would be pushing the mental health aspect. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Make it normal. And if you're in a position, I don't care what your rank is, man. If you're a firefighter, a paramedic, lieutenant, captain, great book I read doing the undergrad through SIU was Taking the Cape Off by Patrick Kenny. That was one of the books we read. And Patrick Kenny was a chief, southern suburbs. And it's an easy read, man. It's you can get through it in a day, and it sucks you in. So it talks about his experience through loss and grief. He lost his son, and just shortly thereafter, he lost his wife. To so just kind of a 1-2 hit, and his son struggled with behavioral. You're right. It was mental health, and the book talks about all of this stuff and his experiences in that. And I would say for any firefighter, anybody in the industry, even police, law enforcement, whoever, if you're a parent and you have nothing to do with the fire service, great book to read. Absolutely, man. He talks about the struggles he had with his son Sean, and really brought some things to light because now, wow, I'm a dad. Oh wow, I've seen these things. So now you start second guess, going, oh my gosh, man, this could. Okay, hold on here, and wow. But yeah, I mean that to deal with grief and everything else, and he says, he kept it bottled up, and that's his biggest regret. That he had all these things going on, and he didn't want to talk about it at work because he didn't want people to judge and think he's weak and a weak leader, and it's like it's everywhere, man. So great book there. That was phenomenal. That was an excellent book. I haven't seen him speak. I know he goes around and he does that. It's been out a little while. So the mental health thing, we maintain our apparatus real well, right? We do all kinds of oil changes and tires and brakes and annual pump testing and all that other stuff. We've learned our heart disease is killing firefighters. It's the number one leading cause of firefighter death. We're getting better at that. We're doing physicals and health and wellness programs and all that other stuff. So if we beat the snot out of our equipment all the time and we know we need to maintain it, and physically we're not doing well, so we're doing stretches and exercises. We're eating better. The mental component's just kind of the one lagging behind. And yeah, man, make that a mainstay. Ask questions, and it's a lot better to ask questions early on and kind of be concerned about things rather than to regret not asking those questions and not having that opportunity. Our organization here, we've been surrounded by suicides, in the last 2 years or so. So it's here. I mean, it's a real problem. A couple of years back, we had 3 police officers, commit suicide in 18 months. So certainly it's here. And I know our police department, there's an officer over there. He does a orientation on mental health with all their new recruits. So these are things I think we can start incorporating because we're getting a new brand of people and it's just a different culture. So introducing them and realizing these things, put it right on the table from day one. So then it's not unusual. It's not abnormal.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, wow. And checking in with guys. So yeah, the mental health thing is huge. I don't know how to move forward with it. Right. So we've got peer support. You mentioned Next Run. I'm not sure. I want to develop or figure out the annual. I don't want to call it an evaluation, right? Because that just has horrible pretenses on it, right? Annual mental routine maintenance, whatever you want to call it, right? How you doing, right? We're all wives. Suicide and divorce is rampant in our industry, so I think that's something we kind of need to address. Because if you're not good at home, you're not going to be good here.
Yeah,
it's about focus. So, yeah, we're working on that one. I don't have the answers. Got to get some smart people together and kick this around a little bit.
Vandenberg says mental health
check-in. Yeah, absolutely. Something that sounds non-judgmental, right? People get all free. What do you mean an eval? No. What happens if they find something? It's just like the medical.
That's probably the biggest fear, right? Is that they'll be like, well, now you
because you lose your identity. You lose your career and your life because that's what you've been for a third of your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would certainly make that the mainstay, man. That's doable for sure.
Jay also says that there's a program in development in Lake County right now.
Oh, is there?
I guess that's what he said.
I didn't know that. All right, beautiful.
But either way, doesn't mean don't
moving.
I mean, we get an annual physical, right? You get all these other things, like
right.
That's true. There is no
right.
I just switched to. I know I'm 32 and I sound like I'm 12 here, but I just switched to HMO and I've never had a primary care, so I had one this year for the first time. Since I was like a pediatrician when I was a kid, right? And that was a big element of it. Was I had like 2 or 3 questionnaires that were all mental health, and I was honest with all of them, and it was really good. And she wasn't a psychiatrist or anything, but she knew what my job was. We talked about a little bit of stuff, and it was actually kind of nice. And there was no judgment or anything that came from it. There was no like, oh my god, he's crazy.
Not at all, man. Good.
It actually helped. I was having some sleep issues, and I don't know. It went away because I talked.
Perfect. Right. And generally, that's all it is. Kind of getting it out there, getting it off your chest, and moving forward.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, creating the culture, man.
Yeah.
Creating the culture. That's the toughest part. Creating and being acceptable.
For sure. Yeah.
What about apparatus? That's not really anything to talk about. They're all they're backlogged, man. They're all in layaway.
Yeah, you're right. There's really nothing there. I mean, I'll throw this out here to people watching live. If you got a question, I know Jay, you were saying you were trying to think of something that was productive. Whatever you want to throw our way. Anyone else listening too?
For sure.
Definitely open to talking about stuff. My dad threw out something too here. We were talking about. I was talking about challenge coins before while you were off running that call about traditions, and he brought up that there's a Bobby Halton Memorial one that's out here now, which benefits firefighter cancer support. So he put that link in our chat as well.
Does anybody? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I don't know if I talked a little, but Halton's a big influence of mine. So
absolutely.
Really, I love pushing anything, even after his death. Anything from him.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. He was a great ambassador.
Yeah. So
absolutely,
who personifies a fire service? That's him for me. That's my answer to that question. But yeah.
No, for sure. So a number that I heard, and this is maybe going back a little bit, was 63% of firefighters will end up with some form of cancer. That was like the rate. And I can't remember where I heard that from, but it was about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
I don't know.
I'm wondering if there's any studies or anything out there of recent that have data for that, because I think that would be important to instill into our culture, especially with our new hires, people coming in. I think our rates will drop. I think we're being much more intelligent, smart, if you will, about cleaning up, not having dirty gear, right? So think about that. If when people say change doesn't happen in the fire service, I disagree. When I came on in the fire service in the late '90s, dirty gear was the thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's all that clean stuff, man. Come on, look at this new guy. We've done a complete 180. So it takes some time, right? Break habits, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's I know there were a few things that fell off just because they couldn't work, like the clean cab concept that didn't really last. But there's a lot of other things that we're still doing that are beneficial. Like I know IFSI put out a thing where you're supposed to put on like EMS gloves when you take your stuff off. I mean, like some things are not feasible, but there were a lot of things that we've still kept around. The washing and laundering. I mean, we definitely do that. You take a shower afterwards. We got a guy in my department right now. Shout out to Pete, who I know is not watching, but he might listen later. He was looking into saunas, and I don't really know that much about them, and I don't know a lot of places that have them, but I know there's been some validity to that too. So that proves that we can change.
Right.
And cancer. I mean, I don't. You said 63%.
The number I heard was 63% of firefighters
I feel like
will come down with some form of cancer. Now, again, go back to 20, 30 years ago, right? Because those are probably the majority of the numbers that are popping up.
Yeah.
Eating habits, tobacco use, right? Alcohol consumption, carcinogen exposure with structure fires and job-related exposures.
So much more than fires. Yeah.
I think lifestyle probably played a little bit into that because, again, we were invincible. We still have that attitude.
Yeah. Well, even think, like, I mean, how long have you guys had station tones?
Oh, God. Tones?
Or I don't know how you guys wake up in the middle of the night, but if a call comes out for another station, do you hear it?
No.
Right? So
no. They're specific to the station.
Yeah, when I started at Antioch, they didn't have that. And then when I started in Lake Zurich, they didn't have it up until, I don't know, a couple years before I started. So, like, it's like those are
that's a game changer
too,
for you
right?
guys.
Like you wake up and your heart explodes for a call that you're not even going on.
Correct. We just actually updated our station alerting systems for well over 6 figures. Little softer, better ramp.
Yeah, the ramp up tone, right?
So we're going. The big news right now is the consolidation of dispatch agencies in Lake County. Mm-hmm. They're going to build that central. We're part of that, our organization.
Yeah.
So once that gets online, then we'll kind of institute the final piece of the new alerting software with the computer voice and whatnot. So yeah, no,
ours is hilarious. We've got the red lights and a nice tone, and that's all great. But then our station officer has a lab or active 911, whatever the hell the app is, and it's literally the tones from emergency, and it's super loud because everyone's paranoid that it's not going to work. So it doesn't matter anyway. Either way, you're getting the burr, and you're like, oh my god, like
bouncing off the ceiling. Like,
it doesn't matter. We did have a question, by the way. So Josh Keen reached out here, and Keener's got a question here. He says, "Why do you guys think there was so much drop off in the fire service applicants following the height of COVID?"
I think that's been ongoing. I think it's been longer than that. Different world, right? Think about the ways that you can make money today that were not available 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, right? You can have followers on it. Bless you. You can have followers on Instagram. You could be a blogger. You can work from anywhere in the world with a laptop doing just a multitude of different things. It's just different opportunities, and I know one of the things that the newer culture, if you will, the newer generation is like, you work 24 hours in a row. Yeah, that doesn't work for me. You guys work holidays? What about weekends? Oh, that too. I don't. Just not feeling that. Right. So I can turn my laptop off and I can work as I see fit. So I go back to just a generational change. There's plenty of opportunities out there, and think about too. Go back 20 or 30 years. How many people worked for one corporation for 30 years, 35 years? They worked
Many.
for
Yeah.
one place, one company. I worked with GM. I worked for Ford. Whatever it may be. You don't have that
No.
anymore. There's no longevity in the workplace because in order to kind of advance and maybe move ahead, you need to kind of hop around a little bit and
Yeah.
get some other different experience. So obviously that does not work in our industry whatsoever, right? So if you leave after whatever period of time and you kind of keep hopping around, that diminishes benefits and that diminishes your pay. It's not like you can squeeze in here a different rate. I mean, other than like chief, deputy chief, those are hired sometimes from the outside for various reasons. But I just think it's just an incompatibility with the younger generation today. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, trouble with military recruitment. It's trouble with police. It's trouble with public safety. Police has their own other set of issues, of course. But yeah, I think it's just not a
It's service
desirable
jobs
field anymore. Yeah,
in general,
right.
and like it's hard because you don't want to like there are we're hiring them. They're still there. There's still people that care about giving service and and
Oh yeah,
fit that
absolutely.
mold. And maybe
Hmm.
there weren't better opportunities, even a couple years ago, like when I was tested. I've only been on Lake Zurich for almost 5 years, and my list was huge,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
And I got hired off of it.
right.
It was at least 100 people, and maybe there were always people that were part of those lists that weren't into service and were still getting hired anyway because, oh, I get a pension. Oh, I can make six
Yep.
figures doing this. And now
Right.
people are seeing that don't fit the mold for firefighters.
Yeah.
Are kind of not even approaching in any way because they go, oh, pension, whatever. That benefit's not as
Yep.
good anymore as it used to be. Or, oh,
Yep.
well, I can get paid way more to do this where there's no risk.
Right.
And so they're falling off in that way.
Yeah.
I don't. I
Right.
mean, it's a really great question, and really it's just theories. I don't really know. I will say this though: the last group of people that we've hired, they're all below the age of 24, and
Wow.
except we stole one from you, but that's beside
Yeah,
the
you
point.
did.
We did do that.
I'm gonna hold that against you
I
too.
know, I know. It took this long for that. I was saving that for the end, so you didn't hold it against me. But and every one of them gets it. Every one of
Yeah.
them.
Yep.
They want to be firefighters. They want to be paramedics.
Right.
They want to serve people. They're into it, and it's intimidating a lot of the older generation because they're seeing these guys come in and really hungry and knowing what they want, understanding what the fire service to them is supposed to be, and wanting it to be that way. And
Right.
personally, like even if the numbers of recruitment is down, like the quality of people seems like it's more consistently up, and that's just from
Right.
my small view of my department. But
So do you guys require firefighter or paramedic or any certs?
so we require it all, and I know you guys just changed that, and there were some other places around. We're kind of I thought you were.
We've been hired. We have no requirements. We get preference points for
Yeah.
things like that. But yeah, so we had this last testing cycle. We had about 154 people take applications out. 120 returned them. We ended up with a final list of about 65 people. I would say, don't quote me on these numbers. I want to say like the top 8 to 10 had certifications of some sort, whether it be both firefighter and paramedic or
That's it?
EMT.
Wow.
Yeah. So I actually had a conversation. We went to Gurney yesterday, change of quarters, and I was talking to their ship, Bob Haraver, another great guy, former Waukegan guy over there, hazmat guy forever. We were talking about that in the hiring situation. They said, yeah, man, we're struggling, right? We only have
Yeah.
10 people come out for a test, if that. And when I told them, I'm like, well, we had great numbers, but if we had the same requirements you did, our numbers would have been the same.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting you mentioned that because I would agree. We have 20 somewhere between 20 and 22 people on probation right now in our department. We hired a ton of people in 2022. It was desperately needed, so that's excellent. We're planning on sending about 12 people to paramedic school next fall. It's an expensive proposition, right?
Yeah.
But all excellent people, hard workers, dedicated, seeking to understand things. And I think they're not as hungry like your situation that you're having just because they don't know yet. It's all still brand new.
Yeah.
Hey, it's fire department. Oh, cool, man. You got some shiny stuff. All right, going to the fire academy. And then you come back and then you kind of assimilate in, and then we'll send you to EMT, and then we'll send you to your prereqs for paramedic, and then paramedic school, right? So 3 years later, you become a firefighter paramedic. But maybe we're starting to see the pendulum, like you said, swing the other way. When we got so ultra safety conscious that we're like, man, maybe we're a little too far here. And again, not being reckless and not being crazy, but just, all right, just like anything else, right? Just ebb and flow. Things go back and forth. So maybe we're starting to see a generation of going, no, man, I don't want to sit behind a laptop. That's boring to me. I want to go and help people. So a little side note here, my 12-year-old stepdaughter, we held out as long as we could to get her a phone. We got her one.
Yeah.
Was locked down pretty good, right? You had to ask permission to download apps and everything else. So during Christmas break, she asked, hey, can we take off the screen time stuff and everything else? So I'm like, yeah, all right, sure. Let's see how this goes. Pretty sure how I know it's going to go. But 6 hours on TikTok a day on average. And I'm like, whoa, no? Yeah, exactly. So talk to her about social media use. And, hey, this isn't exactly a healthy thing right now. And, when you were spending all this time on the phone, your attitude changed and still held straight A grades, right? Straight A's. Hats off to her.
Yeah.
Outstanding. But the attitude and stuff around the house, burdened. Oh, why do I have to do it? And this and that. Like, well, just help. So that got cut back a little bit. But talking with the wife and I were obviously concerned about it. We put those limitations all back on, locked it down pretty tight again. But I think that there's going to be at some point, I don't know when it's going to be, but I think people are going to hate like what we're doing right now. I don't want to sit in front of a laptop.
Yeah.
I want to go see real people. What's that like to talk to real people?
I know.
What's that like to go hang out instead of just texting or Instagramming or any of that other stuff? Like, I want to see people. And the cool thing is that our industry is all that. That is 100% us.
Yeah.
So if we're not on calls and we're around the station, it's people. And if we're on calls, we're helping people. And then when we're transporting to the hospital, it's people. It's real people.
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to start seeing that kind of sway back and go, social. I don't care about the social media. It's just, you want to sit there. It's just boring.
Yeah,
you can only have so much.
I completely cut
let's
off.
See another video. Oh, let's see another video.
It's literally family and fire news, because I can't watch the news to learn about fire stuff in the same way. Like, you know what I mean? So
right.
That's pretty much.
If you use it as a tool, it's great, right?
That's
all the fire stuff out there is terrific. Networking.
Oh yeah.
Even LinkedIn, man. LinkedIn's got a bunch of great stuff too. I've been watching a lot of stuff. So I'm doing my master's right now in public administration through Liberty University. And I got turned on to a guy named Joseph Turner. He's a city manager. It's in a town, I think in Iowa or something like that. It's a smaller town. So he just posts all kinds of interesting, crazy stuff going on the village administrator, city manager type platform. And I kind of I hold that kind of in high regard, because being the trustee in Antioch and knowing how difficult that situation was, especially when the economy turned around and we were in the recession and struggling to survive. I mean, it wasn't like, okay, yep, no frills, we're going to cancel these purchases. That was, oh my gosh, we got to figure out how we're going to make payroll. I mean, oh man, talk about sleepless nights and going, man, I know all these guys.
Yeah. And
then to have to maybe tell them they're getting laid off in the worst time of worst economic time in many, many years. Oh, talk about stress, right? Yeah, that didn't help my life expectancy there. But they got through it, right? the situation, no matter how bad it is, well, let's figure it out. What can we do? And it was a lot of long meetings and discussions and what's legal, right? Because now you got to play within a set of rules. How can we make this work? And again, great education, right? If you teach somebody how to drive going down the road when it's sunny and it's 75 degrees and there's no traffic, yeah, it's easy, right? You got the gas pedal, you really don't have to hit the brake. Nah. Now teach them how to drive when it's snowy, there's a ton of traffic, the wind is bad, the car's got a flat tire, and everything is chaotic, right? So it's kind of like leadership. Leadership and trying to manage is never easy. It's always difficult. It's always an uphill battle. Things are never happening at a convenient time. So get used to pivoting. Get used to trying to make things work when they don't. And, don't have us isn't going to work. They're like, no, how are we going to make this work? And that's kind of like why we exist.
Is that a skill you think you could develop, or is that a skill that you, intentionally develop?
It's a mindset.
Yeah.
It's a mindset. 100%. You can certainly develop it. And it's problem solving. So, and I think, the education nowadays, tons of back and forth, tons of debate on that politically and ethics and all this other stuff. But I think the biggest downfall I've seen is that people get taught what to think. They don't get taught how to think. So instead of, if it's A, then B. Okay, cool. That's two-dimensional. But what if there's an element of C? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Well, problem solve, right? What's the goal? What are the challenges? What are the positives? What are the negatives? What do we need to accomplish? We don't develop that. And I think that's important, especially in our industry, right? Yeah. How many calls have you been on where it's like, oh man, conditions were perfect.
Yeah.
The fire came in at a great time. The weather was beautiful. The engines never run better. This brand new hose. It's one of those things.
Yeah, we live the jump company life. So we're always playing that game that it needs to be perfect. And
right.
One of the things that our village was trying to fight at one point was they brought up like peak manning and like, well, you guys don't run a lot of calls at this time at night. And the chief went, well, no, that's when we're going to have a fully staffed fire force. Like, not that we always get fires overnight, but
right.
Math or statistically for us, it's usually when it's like that's what they're ready to go. Like, you can't take that away from us.
And it's safe to say that's when the most people are the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
In their beds at night, not having any situational awareness, and depending on technologies such as smoke detectors, fire alarm systems, and those built-in things to just get them a heads up to get them out of the situation.
I mean, that's for everything. We're it. At that time overnight, like, you don't go to a minute clinic. You don't call your doctor. You don't do that stuff. What do? You dial 3 numbers and you get us, and we fix it for you. You don't call a plumber. You know what I mean? That's what we do.
Right.
Especially overnight.
For sure, man. Yep. We're open 24 hours.
That's it. That's what we're here for.
For sure. Absolutely. Making those connections.
Yeah.
Connections. For sure. What else you got? Anything else?
I don't know. There's some meat on the bone here. We're going to have to do this another time. I'll think of more cool questions.
Of course, man.
But
update.
I don't know. You're still into training in a way outside of Waukegan? Are you involved with like ISFSI or really like any of those other organizations?
None of that stuff right now.
Not right now.
So all I've been doing is burying myself in school right now. So the last probably 3-4 years. So I wrapped up. I was the guy that was like, school's dumb. Paper only makes you sillier, and not the case, man. So, if you want to sit at the table with the big boys, you gotta put in the work, right? That's how you hone a skill set. And so you gotta get the paper to sit at the table. So I'm like, all right, I should probably do this. And yeah, man, it's been a great experience. So I got my associates with Columbia Southern, and then I went to Southern Illinois, and then did their undergrad in public safety management. And then I am now, like I said, in Liberty University, which I never heard of, and comes to find out they're ginormous. And people are like, "Oh my God, yeah, my brother went there." Oh yeah, I know that. So they're out of Lynchburg, Virginia. They have 100,000 students,
Wow.
Division I sports teams, and I think there's about 15 to 20,000 on campus. And they've been doing online or distance learning 20 some years. They used to send VHS tapes in the mail,
Wow.
and then that's how you would get your lecture back in the day,
That's
apparently.
something else.
So yeah, it was a great experience. So doing the public administration, master's in public administration, and then be done with that in August. So it's tough, man.
Yeah.
The bar is high with that university. But no, it's good. It's extremely informative.
Yeah.
For sure. So I would, and that's what I would say too. Even if you don't think, there's our talents.
There it is.
Fire department, station 3.
Oh, there you go, buddy.
Have a possible signal 0
Oh, good.
Subject blue.
Oh,
Not breaching.
ooh.
2736.
All right, buddy. On that note,
That's it. Hey, we'll do another one. All right.
you got it.
Good to
Thank
talk
you,
to
man.
Thank you for
All right,
coming.
buddy. You betcha. Goodbye, Night.
Bye. All right. Messed up my overlay here because I got it set up for the 2, but that's fine. Whatever. Thank you guys for watching, and I mean, that's not the last time I'm going to talk to Mike. So, Jay, Dad, and Chief Leidig, you guys, thanks for commenting again. It's always cool to actually have some people interacting as we go. Chief Leidig, if you're still in here, we're up. I don't remember. I have it in our email somewhere, and I was going to make a thing. But you're next up. So I know you were talking about the recruitment. You had some comments in there. We're going to save those for when you and I talk in the same way in a couple weeks. I think, what do I got? I think I got my schedule here somewhere. March 31st. So, either way. I don't know if I can pull up. Probably not. Nope, I can't. I was trying to pull up the Bobby Halton coin, but no big deal. Again, some of the things we talked about. Next rung, that's huge. Share it with the people in your organization. I've heard nothing but good things about them. It's entirely firefighter driven, from what I've gathered. I mean, I think they've got other. It was started by firefighters. I'm sure their resources are more than just firefighters. But yeah, there we go, Chief. March 31st. So 8 o'clock start again for that one. So yeah, thanks, Jay. I know it's a big get for the show. I know. We'll keep climbing the ladder and having fun with this stuff. So again, thanks for the comments, guys. I think that's gonna be it for me. I'll throw this thing up on Spotify too at some point, and yeah. I forgot to record it while we were going, so I'm gonna use this video left over. So I can't wait either, Chief. But either way, it's gonna be a good time. And Mike was obviously awesome to talk to. He's got so much to give in terms of not just fire service but life. So yeah, thanks. Have a nice night. Stay smart out there. How about that?